All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Port of Bellingham Board of Commission regularly scheduled meeting for Tuesday, February 17th, 2026, and Happy Lunar New Year to all that celebrate. It is the year of the fire horse, I am told, yes. I'm going to read our mission statement and thank everybody who is here with us in person, share the ways to participate, and then we'll get started. Our mission statement is to promote sustainable economic development, optimize transportation gateways, and manage publicly owned land and facilities to benefit Whatcom County. There are multiple ways to participate. We always appreciate folks showing up in person, so thank you for being here. There is phone, Zoom, and YouTube options to participate as well. So I'm going to start with opening the public meeting and, I'm opening the public meeting with roll call. Did I have to end the executive meeting? Yeah, was it? So I have to end the executive session and open the regular public meeting, and I'll start with roll call. Commissioner James?
Present.
Commissioner Briscoe? I think that was a present.
Say it again, Commissioner Briscoe. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Present.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Shepard is here as well. All three commissioners are present. We'll start with our public comment. We have two public comment periods. I'll read a short statement on how we do public comment and then offer an opportunity for folks to participate. The Port welcomes public comment at commission meetings to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to speak. The commission generally listens without engaging in back and forth dialogue. Commissioners will consider input received and may request follow-up from our executive director or have an issue scheduled for conversation at a later time. There are two public comment periods during each commission meeting, one at 4 p.m. and the other at the end of our regularly scheduled business. The public comment periods may be limited to 15 minutes in total, and speakers are asked to keep their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Written comments are also welcome. So with that, do we have anyone sign up for public comment?
And none online.
None online. Anybody wish to provide comment here in the room?
Hi, I'm Elliot Smith. I'm the real estate director here at the Port. And I just have a brief public comment. Oh, this is quite loud. Public comment and thank you. Annika Bjorkman is leaving the Port after 3 years and 9 months of service. We understand that there is a granddaughter drawing her farther south. And I just wanted to thank her. We recruited her here to be a strong property manager and to help us build an asset management program here at the Port. And after 3 years and 9 months working incredibly hard on a number of projects, she has excelled there, and now she has delivered a raspberry farm, a gravel terminal, and a fish market. So exactly our plan, it came perfectly. But she is now going to be the real estate manager for the Northwest Seaport Alliance, so back down to Tacoma and Seattle. But she will be sorely missed here. And I do have one item for her so that she can remember our commissioners, our fellow staff members, and our tenants. And I just wanted her to take this and take it to her new office in Tacoma, Seattle. Annika, could you come in and talk this, please?
Thank you.
You can decide who that is, yeah. And lastly, there will be drinks this evening at the Penny Farthing at Chuckanut Distillery from 6 to 7, provided we have finished our commission meeting. Thank you very much. And Annika, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Anyone else wishing to provide public comment? Come on up.
Dan Tucker, Working Waterfront Coalition. Also, thank you to Annika. You've been an excellent landlord for us down at the Harbor Mall Strip there, so we appreciate your time and all the work you've put in. I did want to put a shout out for next week on the 25th, in between the two work study sessions that Mr. Gowron just sent out today. We're having a marine trades job fair and a crew connections for our commercial fishing fleet and those who wish to work upon it. So Squalicum Boathouse, 12 to 4 p.m. is an open public job fair. We'll have all kinds of marine trades there. We're working with WorkSource Washington, the Northwest Workforce Council, the Working Waterfront Foundation, and the Coalition are all helping to host this job fair. So we hope to see anyone in the community come down if you're interested to see what opportunities are available on our waterfronts. Following that in the evening, Structures Brewing, 5:30 to 9-ish, we're having crew connections, and that's for anyone that wants to work on a commercial fishing vessel, for captains and operators to come down, mingle with potential and prospective and returning crew. And then also, if you've never been in the industry before, we'll have captains, operators, experienced crew there that you can ask questions of, learn from, and see if this industry is right for you. So we hope to see everyone that's interested in that. It's free, it's all ages, and Structures Brewing is providing a fish and chip special, not on their normal menu, for Wednesday and Thursday next week. So if you're keen on fish and chips, check that out. And then final thing I did want to mention, we do really appreciate the invites that were sent out for the work study sessions on the 24th and the 26th next week. I do want to request if we can get those sooner than a week in advance with the details. That does help us plan so that I don't have to, particularly as a stakeholder organization, rearrange things. If I can plan it a little further out than a week, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Dan, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Do I need to bring a resume?
Yes, actually, if you do have one, feel free to bring one, but it's not required.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wondering.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, just for clarification, were you asking for the dates of the work study to be out sooner, or?
Just if there were details about the timing. I knew that it was happening the 24th and 26th, but I didn't know the timing of it.
Okay.
And being all day, that can adjust my schedule.
Great, thank you.
All right, very good. Anyone else? Okay, well, we will have another comment session at the end of our regularly scheduled business.
Mr. Shepard,
Yeah,
can you hear me okay now?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. I had to turn off about 4 of the Bluetooth devices there.
Sounds like fun with technology there.
Yeah.
All right. Our first scheduled item is a new hire introduction.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Aaron Bisson, Harbor Master, Squalicum Harbor. I'm here to introduce Tatiana Finch, our newest harbor operations specialist at Squalicum Harbor. She was born and raised in Kingston, Washington. Came up to Bellingham to go to school. Comes to us with 10+ years of customer service experience, and we are excited to get her in here before the summer rush happens. So,
Okay,
Tatiana.
very good. Welcome. Thank you. All right, any other, that looks like our only new hire. We'll move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
All right, any questions or comments for the consent agenda, Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
Commissioner James?
Yes. The minutes from the special meeting heading have the former commission listed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will make that change.
So should we not approve though, or we can approve them with that change?
We can approve it with amendment.
Okay, great. I just wanted to take one quick second, if we don't mind, to look at motion C, EDI funding. Yeah, hi. So if you don't mind just a moment of context for the new guy, I was looking through this application and it looks like this is a great project. So excited to get this funding. I was looking back at past EDI grant loan amounts. And so the list of projects that have come through the port, all seem to accumulate on the shoreline, marine trades, and, port infrastructure on the shoreline. So, and also rural broadband. So my question is, and we can come back to this at another time if that makes sense, but want to make sure that we're looking at using these funds with as broad a lens as possible, if there's ways for the port to activate these funds for areas outside of the waterfront into the county.
Yeah, great question, Commissioner. Tyler Schroeder, Economic Development Director here at the Port. Have some intimate knowledge on the EDI program, the Economic Development Investment Program, from my time with the county. And your question's a really good one. I think over the last year or year and a half, Port staff has been thinking about which projects move forward for which grant opportunities. And with Elise Ingalls now on staff being the grant coordinator and kind of identifying the capital projects that we have moving forward. We all sat down about a year ago and recognized as a group that the Fairhaven Marine Industrial Park Infrastructure Project was a great fit for EDI. With the funding from the federal government locally, and then also to make up the funding gap that we had to get FMIP, the Fairhaven Marine Industrial Park, with infrastructure and resiliency to really be able to, hopefully be able to develop Lot 8 for some maritime industrial development. As we decided that FMIP was the right time and the right project for EDI, we also talked generally about what's next and how we could move forward with EDI applications that could look like a future airport project for infrastructure and development for D14, which we can talk about in the future. Could look like the Blaine Harbor and cleanup work that's down there. And so we haven't looked, and we can't, as the port, go beyond port-owned property. It has to be public infrastructure. And so that's been kind of our the EDI program guidelines, has to be public infrastructure.
And so for us, sorry to interrupt you, so for us, public infrastructure means what we own, not
Port-owned.
other public infrastructure.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and kind of historically over the EDI program, the city of Bellingham would apply for a grant for city-owned infrastructure. The port would apply for a grant and loan for port-owned infrastructure. The county would do the same. And so you kind of, we have the port done it for tenants. All-American Marine is a great example of port-owned property utilizing EDI for infrastructure to help, retain and expand local businesses. And that's a big part of, I think, the port's strategy on EDI is to do that work. But, port or city owned properties for economic development, it is not usually or a custom that EDI is used for that type of purpose.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just as background, EDI is a county-managed fund that replenishes every year through, is it a sales tax or
Yeah,
property tax?
It's a sales tax rebate.
Sales tax
So,
rebate.
About 26, 27 years ago, the state passed what they call the rural sales tax. And so all counties that are rural in nature, there's a definition, there's a number that I can't recall off the top of my head, gets a rebate back from sales tax that's collected from the state. And so Whatcom County collects $6 to $6.5 million a year on it. And the county and has kind of set through the EDI board different priorities. The county utilizes a certain portion for county assets, and then a certain portion for the public infrastructure projects, and then a smaller portion for affordable housing, which was a state law change 2 or 3 years ago, allowing for affordable housing projects to be able to utilize EDI. So, you know, I think having the port be as strategic as we can to be able to submit grant and loan applications that truly drive economic development and business growth, because I think the port's in a unique situation with the publicly owned lands for that purpose compared to the other cities, and we could be really quite competitive in the EDI with the right strategy moving forward.
Great. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
that,
you.
that background. Though those are my only questions for the consent agenda.
Okay, very good. I don't have any additional items.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through F with an amendment to consent agenda item B.
Good catch on that. Commissioner Briscoe,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Carries 3.
Motion to approve a 30-day runway closure schedule associated with upcoming runway rehabilitation project, allowing additional airfield construction activities to be incorporated into the closure window to eliminate the need for future extended runway closures over the next 5 years.
That was a mouthful. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Rodriguez, Director of Aviation, here to present for this action item for the airport to be closed for 30 days to allow for the construction project to take place, amongst other projects as well. On this slide here, we're looking at a one-time closure in the year 2027. So the construction will be taking place in 2027, not 2026, 2027. The estimated amount for this construction is between $25 and $30 million. And to date, in the upcoming for the fiscal years 26, 27, 28, we'll have about $23.5 million, and that's split between our airport improvement program entitlements, as well as the airport infrastructure grant money. And discretionary is also included into that, which is $3 million. So the 30-day closure, what you see on this map is you have the runway rehab, you have the runway shoulders and lights, taxiway Alpha Bravo and Golf lights as well, transitioning all those incandescent lights to LED. And then as well, so this is the first portion of the project, and this is what is going to be bidded out at the end of this month. The airfield improvement program projects, as listed, will be finishing design this year, and then we'll be applying for additional grants in fiscal 2027 year for that. And we'll be having open discussions during 2027's budget season for the port this year. Anyways, this encompasses the realignment of taxiways D and E. Removal of taxiway D and E, and then the new taxiway D. Runway blast pads at both ends of runway 16 and 34. That's at the north and south end of each runway, as well as new taxiway Lima and new taxiway Charlie. So this project is very ambitious, but this is a realistic view of how we can accomplish all of these projects in a 30-day window closure. And the estimated cost, as I stated earlier, is going to be between $25 and $30 million. Any questions?
Yeah, Matt, since we're looking at this again, just so the public is able to get some of the background on the rationale for why we have to take this step, I think at our last meeting, we had a lot of discussion on how no one wants to be in a situation where we have to close a runway. And being an airport with only one runway, that means we have to close air service at our airport. This is a process that is being driven by a mandatory set of repairs that the FAA is requiring for us. And our staff has been doing a ton of work to try and mitigate the bare minimum amount of closure needed while maximizing the amount of revenue that we can bring into these projects from the FAA and federal government, and take care of projects that we know must be addressed in the next 5-year period, which will also require runway closures. And so we have, I think your team, our consultant, our partners at the FAA, the commission, and our executive director have all spent a lot of time looking and really trying to understand this from every perspective to try and make sure we are being as cautious as possible with the runway closure. I don't know what you want to follow up with that. I just said a lot, but maybe you can follow up something from perspective and just give us a little bit of insight on how required this is and how we've been working with our consultant to get here.
Of course, and that was well said, Commissioner. So we planned the runway project years ago. What that looked like back then is much different from what it looks like today. And looking at the outlook of the next 5 years of what it's going to take for the airport to complete these upcoming projects that would also trigger a closure. This is all within our 5-year capital plan. So what we did is we looked at it from a holistic view of saying, okay, if we're going to close the runway for the one project, what other projects can we chew off and throw into this overall closure, and then mitigate the impact of any additional closures from years on out. Originally, we had multiple runway closures being scheduled just because of the phasing of the work and how we aligned the design, and then moving forward with the bidding and construction and all of the timelines for the federal budget with the entitlements that we receive. So yes, the airport and Mead and Hunt, we got together and we discussed what can we do to eliminate some of the costs from the previous design, in which we did. So we looked at it in each project. So the blast pad, we looked at differently than what a taxiway would look at, as far as like what was originally designed and what can we do to mitigate costs to these projects, in which we've found numerous and several different ways of doing so. We can talk about that later. But yeah, in essence, we're trying to do one closure and that's it. And then that way we can stay open for the future years for all of the air carriers and general aviation businesses and so forth.
Commissioner, so we met one-on-one with commissioners this week to kind of walk through this very technical project. And in a nutshell, it's maximizing the amount of funding that we can receive and minimize it for the maximum amount of projects and minimizing the closures. The 5-year plan, as it currently sat, had runway closures every other year. And so we are trying to mitigate that and close now, do it as much as we possibly can in order to not do it later.
And what I remember is the actual total number of closure days would have been greater if we had spread this out over multiple years with multiple closures. And so doing this in a condensed format is both using our resources as effectively as possible and minimizing the number of days that the runway would need to be closed in totality.
Yeah.
That's correct. It's a win-win situation. I mean, we have to do this repair on the runway because we want to prevent any damage that can be caused to the airport if we were just to put this off and off and off in different years. As far as the other portions of the projects, which are identified underneath the Airfield Improvement Program, these are requirements as well. The FAA says we have to reconfigure the geometry layout of our taxiways. And this has been programmed, so we found a way to include and encompass everything into just one closure.
Yeah, just one clarification. I heard some confusion from the community and from commissioners after the last meeting that this closure is for 2027, not 2026.
Okay. Additional questions or comments, Commissioner James?
Thank you for maximizing what we can do during this closure. That was my main concern from the last meeting, is what are we doing to plan for the future so that, knowing that repairs and maintenance are coming down the line, we can make sure that our airport stays open as much as possible. So one thing that we've talked about is the cost of not meeting the deadline of, like, once we close, getting the work done and getting it done on time. So I'm just curious about if this is too soon to say or not, bidding this out and making sure that we have contingency plans in place so that, if contractors are making a commitment to complete this on time, it has to be completed on time. What are we building into those contracts to ensure that we're protecting ourselves?
Yes, that's an excellent question, Commissioner. So the FAA allows for provisions in there for liquidated damages. So if there's any delay of construction, that we would have strong language in the contract that would identify what the airport's loss can be per day. though you have to prove that. You have to prove that there's going to be a loss of revenue. We can also include language in there that to be as broad as, if the construction does occur beyond the deadline of when the construction is supposed to be completed, that any costs incurred by the port by an airline, for say, if we see a lawsuit coming down from an airline saying, hey, we sold tickets, then we can include that type of language in as well.
Okay, great. My only other question is on the memo. We assigned a revenue loss to the airport, and that the financial impact for airport stakeholders, including tenants, is still being investigated. And I was curious, in our loss of revenue, does that include any consideration for airport tenants? Like, do they get a discount on rent, or what do they get? What consideration do they get for the disruption to their business?
So yes, we'll review. We have that survey out, and once we collect all the responses, we'll begin to share that information with the commission. Of course, this is a topic that we'll be bringing directly to the commissioners, and staff will propose what's a feasible option. We'll work with accounting and see what's a feasible option, and talk it over with Tiffany, and then come up with some recommended solutions to the commission.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Well, on our one-on-one meetings, we had a lengthy one, Tiffany and Matt and I. I'm very glad to see that we're going to do this all in one shot. I don't think spreading it out over time would be good for the airport and good for anybody. I know that generally when you do it in a big lump, it sometimes hurts. We may be a little cost overruns, we don't know. But I think for the good of the airport and the good of the people of Whatcom County, we need to do it in one, just as it's figured. And thank you, Matt, for your team and everybody working to make things come together so that this could happen. And just maybe in layman's terms, for the folks watching or who will come back and look at this meeting, explain why we have to change our taxiways.
Yes, yeah, it's a great question. So why we're changing or reconfiguring the geometry layout is, in short, to mitigate the chances of runway incursions. Where you see some of these taxiways, the shaded portions like Taxiway Echo and Taxiway Deco, the shaded portions, how they're angled off, they're called high-speed taxiways. So essentially what the FAA says is that they don't want the high-speed taxiways anymore, and why we have the reconfiguration of the geometry for the new taxiways to be perpendicular at that 90-degree angle is to have the pilot or anybody in a vehicle out there for that reason to think about what they're doing as they're turning, right? So as you're turning at a 90-degree angle and you're coming up to a hold position, hold short sign, like don't go beyond that sign, whereas these other taxiways don't really have you think like that. It's just kind of straight shot right to the runway. So that's the purpose of it.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Great job.
Thank you.
I don't have any more questions.
Okay. And Matt, what about employment for folks who work at the airport? What do we expect to happen during the closure period?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, one that we're still investigating. We'll be doing sit-downs with all the concessionaires. We'll sit down with the general aviation businesses. Really want to understand and paint a good picture, and that we can fully understand what the actual impact is going to be to these businesses and what their plan is. So it really is just going to be, a really good collaboration that's going to be required on the port's end to fully understand what the plan is and how we're going to, mitigate those impacts and what can we do.
We wouldn't be seeing any port employees put on furlough or work without pay because of a FAA mandated closure.
No, negative. And in fact, it's likely that the airport, so the runway will be closed. The airport itself will still remain open. We still can allow helicopter traffic to come in. So like Life Flight and any other operations that include helicopters. So really, at the end of the day, we're still going to have to do our regular routine inspections. Staff will still have to be out there inspecting what's required of them. And yes, we'll be still open.
Okay.
Everybody's coming to work.
Okay, nobody's gonna have to lose their job, and I just, reiterate that we are working under, we work under the authority of the FAA to operate an airport. They fund our airport, they get to determine its safety requirements and needs and policies and procedures, and they're somewhat inflexible, to put it lightly. And so we have to work within the parameters, and I think we've done the best to advocate for our community interests and needs. And if we had 2 runways, we'd be having a very different conversation here. But with 1 runway, we just have limited options when something is a required repair.
Yeah, thanks for that, Commissioner. I think what we're excited about, if we have to do a closure and kind of take into consideration all of these logistical and operational questions, is how do we activate it during that period? And so I think we can get kind of creative there. So we'll be coming forward with some ideas there too.
Yeah, I think we've had some good ideas from the public and also from our team about how to utilize that space effectively during this period. Okay, any other questions or comments from the commission on this before we move on?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
you said the airport will remain open. Well, are people with concession stands, vendors there, will they be able to serve the construction workers? Those folks who are there? Because that'll help.
Yes, that's definitely a topic of discussion that that we'll be having with our concessionaires as well. And we're also looking at having the airport put on some type of public function that we can discuss internally and see what we can offer. And yeah, our goal is to help out those concessionaires throughout this process.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Okay. Hearing no other questions or comments, I think we're ready to vote.
Motion to approve a 30-day runway closure schedule associated with the upcoming runway rehabilitation project, allowing additional airfield construction activities to be incorporated into the closure window to eliminate the need for future extended runway closures over the next 5 years.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Carries 3-0.
Motion to approve Resolution 1428, adopting the Marinas Moorage Model, superseding Resolution 1403.
Hi, Commissioners. Pam Taft, Marinas Project Manager. We're here talking about the moorage model again. So back in August, we gave you a presentation on the moorage model, and we outlined the closed-loop system. We reviewed the current assumptions in the model, and we identified some key topics that we wanted to review, and those being the recreation moorage rates, active commercial fishing rates, upland storage rates, and the liveaboard policy. So the presentation was intended to provide some context and kick off the review, which by resolution is reviewed every 4 years. So we took your feedback to MAC, and after some discussions...
Marina Advisory Committee, the MAC.
That's right, the Marine Advisory Committee. The MAC recommended that we move forward with recreation rates, but pause on the active commercial fishing and the liveaboard so we can have more time with stakeholder engagement. And so that recommendation we're taking forward to you and just asking for the recommendation or the rate increases for rec rates only. So when we review the model, there's a few components that we look at, and we look at the occupancy factors of the marinas. We look at the waiting list. Is there demand there? Does it warrant a rate increase? We look at the moorage rate surveys and see where we fall within the market, and we look at our future capital projects, and we look at moorage rates. Are they up enough to cover and help fund those projects? So this is starting with the occupancy waiting list. So Squalicum is running about 96%, and Blaine is 86%. We'll see those occupancies increase as we move towards the summer months. And what this graph shows is the percentage of the number of people on the waiting list by size. And Blaine has a waiting list for the larger sizes and pretty open on the smaller sizes. And Squalicum has a waiting list for all sizes except the 26-foot slips. So the rate increases that we are asking for are programmed in the model, which was adopted 4 years ago. And those increases show they're 3% for the 30 feet and under, 5% for 31 to 36, 6% for the 37 to 56 range, and 4% for 57 and greater. These rate increases ensure a positive cash flow for the next 5 years until we start getting into the inner harbor work, which we may have to reevaluate and come back and ask for adjustments on that. This is the mortgage rate survey. This is the, it's been updated with 2026 rates that, for the marinas that have them. And the blue shading is our rates for 2026 if the increases go through. The green is what our rates currently are. So our recommendation, we're asking for a motion to approve the rate increases as adopted in the model currently. And we're going to continue working with our stakeholders to get input and come back later with recommendations for increases then. And any questions?
Could you back up to the previous slide so we could just look at
Sure.
where we're sitting here a little bit more? So the blue is if the proposed increases go into effect,
Yes,
and the green is where we sit at the moment.
yes.
We're trying to keep this slide kind of consistent across presentations so that people get used to looking at it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pam. Commissioner Briscoe?
Well, and Tiffany's going to chuckle because I'm in the same place I'm always at on mortgage rate increases. You know, we can't keep out-of-towners, so to speak, from coming to our harbor. This harbor, these harbors, both Blaine and Bellingham, were built by monies from Whatcom County. They weren't built by monies from Pierce County, Snohomish County, or King County. It was from the people that live here. The people that live in Whatcom County, it's their marinas. And we don't have the wages that they have in Pierce, King, Snohomish County, so on and so forth. I mean, it's pretty easy to find out where we're at and as far as wages relate to everything in the household, including mortgage for their boat so they can go out with their family and spend a weekend on the water. And I don't think it's up to solely our marina tenants to bear the burden of the cost of the repairs and doing everything. It's owned by the entire Whatcom County. So my view is a lot different. I mean, I've gone round and round and round about this since I've been a commissioner, and I'm not wavering from it. It's what I believe, what's fair, what I think is fair. And I think that we need to find other means of money to help with a marina, and we will. I think it's coming here in the near future. I think we all know that. I don't have any questions. I just kind of putting out why I'm going to vote the way I'll vote. And so that people understand this isn't, I'm just voting that way because I just want to vote that way. There's in my mind, sound reason not to be doing this. And it's no reflection on staff. It's no reflection on anybody. It's my personal belief that we don't need to do what we're probably going to do here. But I want to keep a marina that's affordable for our people that live in Whatcom County. I could give a rip less about any other port in the state of Washington. I'm concerned with the Port of Bellingham and the Blaine Marina and Squalicum Harbor. That's what I'm concerned with, and I'm concerned with the people in our county that live here being able to afford to keep their boat in this harbor and use it on the water. adjacent to our harbors. So that's all I have, Commissioner.
Just one thing that, thanks, Commissioner Briscoe. I know that we continue to agree to disagree on this one. But one thing that Pam didn't mention was we do have support from the Marina Advisory Committee, or did you mention that, for these rates? So they made a motion at last week's meeting.
Yeah, we do like to take the lead, at least have ideas vetted by the Marine Advisory Committee prior to coming to us. And so part of our process is usually for staff to do some work on this, for us to connect with our advisory group, and then for it to come back to commission, particularly if there's a policy change or a rate increase discussion. Yeah, and I think you mentioned that, coming back to us when we're working on the Inner Harbor, it's my belief that the Inner Harbor costs are going to be too substantial for any rate increases to be able to address. And I think we'll get to a point where there's just the rate increases we would have to ask for would be so high that they would do what Commissioner Briscoe is concerned about, pushing people out of our harbor, and we would see a significant burden on community residents and a drop in occupancy, at least from local folks. And so when we're thinking about those high-cost required infrastructure investments in the future, we're going to need to take a broader net for where the funding is going to come from. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's 100. I would agree 100% that we aren't going to be able to charge enough to cover the cost of an entire marina replacement or redo in today's regulatory environment. So I also wanted just to mention to the commission that the previous commission direction that we've been having, which is sort of to work to stay in sort of the middle of what we consider our market, and to work on moving our wait list along. And we did some consolidation of the wait list and kind of changed that around, and that's all been commission directed. And that is in fact working. We are seeing turnover and slips, which is actually good for the marine trades. It means people are using their boats so that they need marine electricians and all of the other things that go associated with boats. So I think all of those kind of directives that we've been given by commission are actually working for keeping the marina an active marina and not having boats sitting unused. So.
Yeah, it's a challenging equation, but I do think that competitive rates do drive quality business for our marine tenants who work on boats, who repair boats, who fuel boats, who repair, sell new boats. I think competitive rates do drive those type of customers that are going to make good use out of our great local businesses that work in our marinas.
Yeah, just also recognizing that it's just a delicate balance and a bit of a ballet to create a place where accessibility happens and people have opportunity. So always striving for that balance.
Yeah. Commissioner James?
Yeah, I've attended the two MAC meetings since being elected. And so I did watch that group unanimously vote to support these. And I think that the increases. And I appreciate the conversation that we had there and everyone answering all my questions. So question for right now is we are pushing out addressing the active commercial fishing rates. And so is there an ETA on revisiting that?
Right away. We want to schedule a meeting in the next couple weeks, and we'll reach out to the MAC first and try to get whoever's available at that time. We have to kind of schedule it within the season when the fishermen are here. So we want to keep that momentum going and get that reviewed.
Okay, and so there's nothing in this that implies that they won't be changing, right?
It's correct. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
it's neither way. We need to do some more stakeholder engagement, which I think we heard from the commercial fishers on the MAC saying, yes, indeed, we would like some more time to have those discussions given the nature of their work when they're here and when they're not here, so.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the questions that I had at the MAC meeting was just talking about the expense of the capital improvements that need to happen at the harbors. And I was under the impression that these rates were somehow tied to covering the costs for that. But I was told that that isn't correct.
Some of the costs.
Yeah, and that makes, like, in my, looking at our capital budget, looking at the cost of these projects, looking at the rates, what I was just doing some quick math on was that if marina rates covered that cost, it'd be like 25 to 30% increase, which I think we are all on the same page that that's not where we're going with this. I think that what would be helpful for someone like me is just perhaps some commission strategy or like a vision statement of what we actually are trying to accomplish with these rates, knowing that it's not all capital improvements, but knowing that we're trying to balance wait lists and infrastructure and all of the things that we've talked about. Is that something that exists already?
I don't know if it exists. Tiffany might correct me, but I know we talk about how costs have increased across the board for many of our commodities that we use to support our marinas, including wages, which we try and address partially with these rate structures. Just the cost of maintenance and repair, infrastructure at our harbors and marinas, cost of electricity and garbage and all the things that go into running excellent facilities, which I believe we really have here at the port. These rates try and encompass that variety of costs.
Yeah, I think they partially address what you're asking for, and this may be a good discussion for the next work study that includes kind of Squalicum Harbor and that to talk about where do you want to land and what is the
Yeah.
direction. So I think that will be an opportunity during that.
Yeah, for folks who've been following along on these conversations that I have with my fellow commissioners, I keep coming back to this strategic element of I just want, I want to align. I want it to be easy to align. And so those sort of tools would be helpful.
Yeah, and this is only one model for how this can be approached. There are other approaches. You can set a blanket policy of CPI, or you can set a blanket policy of this is the rate increase every 3 years for perpetuity. I mean, we have a variety of tools at our disposal of how to structure this. I think I like that it comes back to us on a regular basis so we're able to evaluate. I like seeing this slide before here. I don't know if you could just put it up for us again. This is always useful for me to see this one, yeah. Just because there are a number of, marinas in the state, and I think we have above average services, we have above average location, we have above average interest in our harbor, and we generally are in the middle to below middle of the pack for rates, and so that we don't need to be the top, but I think kind of keeping us in the middle band here has been historically what we've tried to achieve.
Yeah, I think the commissioner is correct when you say that everybody has a different method. When we go to marinas conferences and we talk about it, it's different every marina you go to on how they decide to set. But what I will tell you is that in the last 5 years, as I've been managing the marinas, that those discussions are getting more and more difficult in the state of Washington for marinas to repair their infrastructure. And I think at the state level, Dan, I'm looking at you, and Mike Hogan, I'm looking at you at the state level deciding, are we actually a maritime state or are we not, from a regulatory environment and from infrastructure investment in marinas. So something to keep watching.
Could I just ask another question of Commissioner Briscoe? Because I'm sensing that this is not the path that you want us to be going down. And so I'm just curious, what are the alternatives that what would you suggest as an alternative to this?
Well, as I spoke to, Whatcom County owns the Port of Bellingham. And in my mind, every person in Whatcom County is held liable for Port of Bellingham. I mean, they own it. So you can't just take out of the mortgage tenant's pocket to pay for rebuilding the marina. You need to take from everybody's pocket. We know we're going to have to bond this stuff or do something. There's no doubt. We can't ever get enough money to make a big difference out of the mortgage of the marina. And one question I was going to ask that I didn't is, how much are we putting in a bank annually above operating costs for our marinas?
Well, you want to answer that, Pam? Or,
Not trying to put you on the spot, Pam.
Yeah,
but
no,
just
it's okay.
relevant to the-
you don't have your glasses?
No,
Oh.
but we have a cumulative cash about 18 million.
So, but each year from our mortgage, from our tenants annually every year, how much above operating costs are we putting in the
Annual
bank?
cash flow,
Yeah. You want to know marina revenues?
less than
What's
2
left?
million.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Less than 2 million?
So that's what we make every year off the marinas above what it takes to operate them?
That's not including capital. That's just operating.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is we got the marina. If it costs us $100,000 to operate it, how much money are we making above that $100,000?
Yeah, let me have Sarah, she's here in place of Tamara, answer from finance. Okay, we might need to get back to you on that number.
Well, I know. I believe last year was around $500,000 above what we needed for operating costs, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I don't think that's correct. Let us get you the right number.
Okay, but it's relevant to answering the questions here. But at any rate, our marinas we're making a certain amount of money above our operating cost of making them operate every year. We have a profit. There's a profit, and it's fairly good sized.
Yes.
Okay, and this is one of my complaints about raising mortgage rates when we're already making a profit. I understand where we're going and everybody wants to go, but this is my complaint is, look, we're making a profit already. Now, the MAC meeting's great, Carly, that we went to. They're good people. It's good. But I don't know if the MAC did a tenant-by-tenant survey on their opinions of raising the rates. Did we go out to every mortgage tenant and ask them, hey, do you want to raise the rates? So we've got a group of people that have talked to a handful of people that are saying it's okay, we're in favor of raising the rates. I don't call that the whole spectrum. That's a chunk of the corner, okay? And I'm not saying anything bad. The MAC is great, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying if you're gonna come and say, yeah, I think we should raise rates, well, then I think you should have talked to every person that it's gonna affect. And I don't believe that was done. Or they would have had a general census of, no, we don't want our rates to go up. That's my opinion. I didn't take a survey. But it's not going to solve the problem of rebuilding our marinas. And in my opinion, and as I stated it, it's only going to make it harder for the people that live and work here that have boats. I mean, and Michael, you made the comment, well, we're going to bring in more money with these other, every dollar you take out of a boater's pocket and you multiply that over a year, they could have put that back in their boat with someone in our working waterfront. Whether it's a new part for the boat that they can get by with the old one, but they'd rather have a new one, that type of thing. The money that we're going to take from our mortgage tenants basically could have gone into our working waterfront businesses. And that's the way it works because I'm a boat owner. I know how it works. If you got to pay the mortgage bill to be there, you got to pay the mortgage bill. But if it wasn't quite so high and you had that much each month and it adds up to, let's say $800-900 for the year, that's something new for the boat or a repair for the boat that you could have had somebody that's got a business there do. So it isn't just that I don't want to raise the rates. I see the trickle down decreases for our businesses as we dig into the pockets of the people that are mooring their boats there. So, does
Okay.
that answer the question, Carly?
It does, and so I follow up. You know, we're sort of punting on the ACF rates because we want more stakeholder engagement. So do you feel like that should also happen with the rec rates?
Well, yeah, well, yes, I don't know to what extent that the MAC, how deep did they dive in getting the answers of raising the rates, and what did they use to justify them saying, yeah, we need to raise the rates? I don't know what that information was. If they didn't go out and talk to a lot of people, well, I'd say we need to do that. Active commercial fishing rates is kind of a little bit of a different ballgame, because that brings a lot of money to our harbor and to our business, and it brings a great deal of money. And the reason we're full is because our rates are where they're at. That's something we can't forget. People want to come here because it's a good deal. It's a great harbor. Michael, you're absolutely right. I've been up and down the coast. I don't know if we're number one, but we're real close to knocking on the door. But people want to come to Bellingham. The port has had an open hand, or an open door policy, and people like that when they come to a harbor. There's many reasons people are coming here. And reasonable moorage rates is one of them, and a good working waterfront full of businesses that can help them with their boat projects is another. Does that answer anything for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I, your input is valuable to me. And I think in this case, having been at the MAC meetings and seen a diverse group of folks weighing in and having conversations there, I tend to want to support that and want to support the recommendation of staff. But I would like to just put this sort of on our long list of strategic conversations to have this year together, because I think that there's an opportunity for me to better understand what the overall strategy is and how we can provide that direction to the staff and collaborate with the MAC to achieve that.
Go ahead, Sarah. Sarah's got a number.
Yeah, so Commissioner Briscoe, if I'm understanding your question correctly, you wanted to know the moorage revenues less the expenses it takes to operate the marinas, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be 4 million is budgeted for 2026.
We're going to take in 4 million profit on our marinas.
Correct, less other revenues, but yes, moorage revenues less operating expenses.
Okay, thank you.
And it may be helpful just as a complete picture to understand, which I don't have the number right here, but how much capital investment we plan for that infrastructure, which is way more than 4 million.
Okay. So this is not super time sensitive, correct? And so I'm just kind of put it out there if there was interest in the commission to gain any additional input or stakeholder engagement. We're not up against a wall for this
A little bit.
decision.
We are. April 1st is when our rates are slated to change. We need to be able to give our customers 30 days notice. That's when our annual rates are also calculated for, beginning in April.
Okay. So 30 days would be March 1st, so yeah, we are kind of at the point.
Yeah, and Commission, apologies if we were kind of off base. We had been going on the assumption that we're staying middle of the market and keeping our costs and infrastructure and capital projects in mind for our cash flow.
Yeah. Okay. I continue to think we need to have competitive rates with other marinas in the state. I think, that we want to avoid boats that just sit in the harbor and don't get used. And, it's hard to tell how many of those exist, but when we have competitive rates, it prevents that from happening. And we do want boats that are being used, being worked on, being serviced, and being in active utilization. And so I do think having competitive rates does help achieve that. And some of our providers share that same opinion with me. And I do know it costs increasing amounts of resources to run these harbors. And this question about who should pay for it, I do think everybody in Whatcom County benefits from the harbors, and I think everybody in Whatcom County does input payment into the port for our operations. But we also recognize that the direct users who have boats in slips have a greater level of utilization and therefore are more subject to increases. And so I think that's been an operating philosophy that I've gone off of for, how we distribute the costs, and that particularly we get those recommendations from the MAC and really do try and lean into them because we have these advisory committees for a reason.
And one last question, ACF rates, this will impact them because they are tied to these rates.
It will not affect the user rate. However, the amount that is the support or the subsidy that is transferred from economic development will increase. Because
I
it's tied to
see.
the 26-foot rate. And so the user rate minus what the 26-foot rate is, that difference is paid by economic development.
But that rate will go up from this.
The support rate from economic development
Okay.
will.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Michael, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said competitive rates, and I get a little bit confused. Could you explain that to me? Because I thought if you were, competitive rates would be we had a lower rate than most other harbors, and that would bring more business. And it almost seems to me like we're going the other way with that. Can you explain that statement to me, please?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see competitive to me means we're following in the middle of the market. That's where I've tried to get our rates to peg. And if we don't raise them, we're going to continue following to the bottom of the market for what we're charging. And that's one way to, achieve high occupancy or to attract more individuals to our harbor. We already have high occupancy. And so I don't see the need to have bottom of the market rates when we have top of the market facilities. And so having rates that are in the middle is achieving what I think is a competitive rate for the service and that we are providing here.
Okay, thank you.
And do we have top of the market facilities?
Well,
I believe we do.
Okay.
our, from what our users share, who, both people who have boats and go to our harbors for all sorts of reasons, the professionals who work on those facilities, we consistently hear that we've got excellent facilities, and I believe that's true.
I think people remember our bathrooms, which you always remember when you go somewhere camping or on your boat. You remember the bathrooms. You remember the showers. And is it safe and secure? And do we provide facilities that do all of those things? And we in fact do, in my opinion.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner James, it boils down to on the working side of things, we have excellent services here for working. We're a little bit short in Blaine. We need to address things up there. But we have excellent security now. We have our own in-house security, which many of our boaters greatly appreciate. And Whatcom County has a tremendous amount of people that can work on vessels and different things. And it's really a good place to come and get major work done to your vessel. The only thing we're short on is a big yard for hauling out boats.
We definitely have access to all the marine trades, which some marinas do not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any further comments? Commissioner James?
I'm good.
Commissioner Briscoe? No further comments. All right.
Motion to approve Resolution 1428, adopting Marina's Moorage Model superseding Resolution 1403.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No, for the reasons previously stated.
And Commissioner Shepard is a yes. Carries 2 to 1.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pam. All right, we have 2 presentations. The first is a 2025 project update, and Sam Ship.
Good evening. I'm Sam Ship. I'm the Engineering Programming Manager for the Port. And I'm going to go over some of the capital projects we completed in 2025 and then some other attributes associated with that work. First off, I want to just go over ROMs, which is the rough order of magnitude. What happens is for each capital project, we require a ROM to come in from one of the sponsors. The engineering group processes that ROM, figures out how much a project's going to cost, and that's the background for creating the budget. So in 2025, we did 60 ROMs, and then to create the 2026 budget, we did 64 ROMs. Active total capital projects, we've been really busy. We had 153 active projects in 2025, and then for 2026, we're doing 136. So we're trying to close out projects as fast as we can, and we're always excited to get new projects for new improvements. This is the capital annual expenditures. So this is looking at the past 6 years. These are annualized or adjusted for 2025 dollars. And so you can see in 24 and 25, we've crossed over that $50 million project delivery. And so this money includes a lot of things. So this is design, where we pay consultants for design, permits. This includes costs associated with assessing assets. But the big outlay of this is the construction. So the big construction projects which we have had in 24 and 25 is the bulk of this. And so we've been busy. The other thing that's really interesting is that the reason we can spend so much money is we have fantastic funding partners. We do have funds coming in from federal, state, and local sources. And another aspect, last aspect I'll add, is that this is putting a lot of money back into the community. So this represents a lot of jobs. This helps a lot of businesses. So the $50 million going back into the community is very beneficial. I'm going to go into highlight some individual projects. The first one, I'm going to start north up in Blaine. This is the MDOC project. The photo on the lower right is the finished, well, we're working on it, is we removed some existing floats and some of the structure above it. And then we took a unique approach on this one, is that the port almost acted like a contractor, where we went ahead and procured the materials, the flotation devices, the grading, the timbers, to build our own floats. So these floats were constructed at the Marine Drive Industrial Park, which the port owns, by our existing forces. So once those were completed in construction, we took them up, and there's a picture of Andy there standing on one of the floats as we drop it in the water for the first time, just to see how they worked out. And then we did hire a contractor to come in and drive the new piles and assemble these floats and tie them all together. So it's an interesting project delivery method, and hopefully we'll do a post-project analysis to see if we want to continue doing this kind of operation. Another project moving south down to the Squalicum Beach area. The first project I'm going to talk about is at the upper left corner. That's one of many phases. We're coming to the end of the Squalicum Beach project. This last phase is where we did the stormwater. We made conveyance go toward the water. We have the nice green area that'll act as part of a park, and we did some stormwater treatment. And then you can't see the outfall because we've hidden it well. It's submerged, and so we're doing a dispersion system. So this provides great access to the park. We also took out some old cement cylinder pipe that was on the beach, so that worked out really well. Another project we're doing in this area is, you can see the peninsula right behind Mount Baker Products. That's an area that had a big stockpile of material. We worked with Cowden actually, and we had that removed. And as part of that project, we also put a berm in to help separate that experience between the green space and the manufacturing. And then we're also putting some infrastructure in to help with a hand launch for boats. And so this is a phenomenal location with great access to the water, and we're hoping to promote that. This was done all with port funds, and this is complete. So another big project we did, and we're still working on in 2025, this is the I&J Waterway. This is over $22 million, and at least, 50% ecology funding. So we've completed the dredging in the water. We rebuilt the bulkhead, so there was a sheet pile construction with a concrete cap, and then there was some nail walls put back in to make sure the structure held together. So this is near completion. We do have some upland work still, but this should be completed in May. So, but this was a huge project. This is a great one to get completed. Another project, this is the BST shipping terminal. It's another huge project. Total project costs were coming up on $30 million. So what I want to start with is that just an example of some of the work on the bottom right photo. That's all the structural steel that went into this to get the heavy lift area. So that's all reinforcing, all hand tied, lots of work, lots of effort to put that in. The photo above it, you can see the black area that was recently paved. That's the new heavy lift area. And then you can see the dredging crane next to it. And then what we did do recently, this is operational. So we had those cranes come in from the Port of Tacoma, and they came through the heavy lift area, and they're being further processed at the port facility. So this was a great project. This was federally funded. We got the MARAD, Marine Administration is the acronym. And so they helped us fund this project. There's great federal money, $7 million. So we're hoping to get this done, probably closure in March is the target. And another large project we worked on this year, this is the Harris Avenue Shipyard. This is about a 4-acre facility. This was a cleanup project, so it was 50% ecology funded. Just the project budget was $8.5 million, but we're going to come in substantially below that. So we scraped the site. There was 2 pits, if you look at the left picture, that had extra contamination, so we removed that. But the picture on the right, we're pretty much done. We're 99.5% done with this one. It's a great site. It's clean. We are waiting for some stormwater control structures that are on back order that will be here hopefully in March. And then once we put that in, that project will be complete. And those are the big projects. I'd like to point out some other projects that we've been working on throughout the port. I'm going to start with the ARF Center up at the airport. Some of our crews and our design staff helped put together, it's an exercise area in the ARF room. Underneath it, going down the column, there's the lockers associated with that project. We also updated a bathroom, an ADA bathroom, and some shower stalls with that project. Those were kind of a different type of project we work on. Also was the BLI. This is the terminal building. We replaced all the low energy efficiency lights with LEDs, so higher energy efficiency, and that project was a good project done by a lot of our internal forces. I'm going to move on to the next column, the Bayview roof. We have a lot of buildings in our inventory, and we are often doing maintenance on these, and this was just another example of we had to rebuild the Bayview roof due to leaking issues. The other thing is a lot of our buildings are in a relatively rough marine environment, and so another aspect of our work is that we did 2 seal jobs. The first one was the Bayview building, so we do a seal coat on the masonry units to prolong the life of the structure. We also did one in 2025 for the Bellwether building. Some other aspects, I'm going to move on to the next column. The warehouse, one in the BST, Bellingham Shipping Terminal area. We were having trouble with those vents. They were losing heavy metal, zinc, was coming off them in the stormwater events. And so one of the interesting projects is we went ahead and recoated those vents to make sure that we addressed that stormwater issue. Another one that we worked on was the Web Locker. I hope everybody's familiar with the Web Locker, great restaurant. And that's on the port property. We had a settlement issue there. And so what we had to do is we had to basically rebuild the sidewalk to make it current ADA standards and appropriate cross slope. And we also recently repaved the area. So that was a good project. I'm going to go with 3 more here. Bent 35 at the BST. This was a really tricky project for us, which we had some consultants help us with. So Bent 35 is out. It's on the north pier, just north of the heavy lift area. And the structurally wood columns had rotted away. And so we had a problem out there. And so we went ahead with our crews. We came up with a solution. We jacked up the deck, replaced the large timber members, did some structural steel, dropped it back down, and then we just recently did the resurfacing of that. So that was a good, very in-house project that went really well. Another one that's really interesting for us is we're working with Barleans. That's at Coho Way and Roeder Avenue. We did some internal remodeling to help them operate the business. We moved some fixtures around and did some wall relocation. So that was another great project. And the last project I really want to touch upon is we've done a lot of EV charging stations. We've put one here just outside the door. This shot is at the Fisherman's Pavilion, and then we put one next to Nikki's. So we've done a lot of great, interesting projects in 2025. We're really looking forward to doing more in 2026, and I hope that I can answer any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Commissioner James?
Can you send this to me?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is really nice for me because I've been wanting to, get a lay of the land of properties and projects where things are at. So I will need to spend a moment with this. Yeah, but I will.
Yeah, we do a lot more projects than just this, so this is just a snippet of what
Yeah,
we're
no, it's
taking
great.
on.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No, just a hats off to our guys internally, our maintenance team and the guys that are doing this work and the Sam. You know, when I first came to the port, and I'll keep it short, long time ago, we were having everything done from outside forces, and it's really costly. It is really costly. And some of these projects it'd be interesting to know what you're going to do for the post-project thing, Sam. I'd like to know how much money roughly we saved by doing this in-house versus having somebody mobilize and come and do it. And don't get me wrong, I want our construction outfits and everybody to make money, but they're pretty busy. And when you have to bid like we do at the port, it's a public project. It can get quite costly because you're kind of over the barrel. So kudos to all of our guys internally that are doing these jobs and our workforce that's out there in the really nice weather this time of the year making things happen. Thank you. I appreciate you guys doing this.
Great. Could we get an update on how long it's going to take to get our depth certified at BST?
Yeah, so we've done the soundings, and then we send them to the pilots organization, and they make a determination. Do you have a schedule, Matt
March, I
Kress?
think. Is that right, Matt? March?
Matt?
Yeah.
So coming up.
Very soon.
Good, because we saw the slide with the MARAD dredging money on there, and we know we've seen lots of work, and we understand the work is completed for the dredging at this point. So now we're just looking to get those numbers truth checked and certified, and then out to our potential customers. Okay, so we've been watching this move along for a little while now, and very eagerly anticipating getting that final certification.
And we do have Sochi from MARAD coming up to visit tomorrow to take a look at the heavy lift area.
Oh, excellent. Glad to hear. Okay. All right, lots of good work. Glad to see some improvements at the ARF station too. It's very nice, and our team does a great job. So this just shows the range and diversity of projects that we're able to accomplish here with a lot of skilled talent in our division. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next presentation. Looks like we have Stephanie Wiley for a meeting and events update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephanie Wiley, Community Outreach Manager. Yes, here today to talk about events. Not here with requesting any action from the Commission, just going to go over an update of the last year for meetings and events at the port. So I'll start off with our meetings and events department. Our team manages a variety of both indoor venues and outdoor park and open spaces that are available for community members to rent. We have the Bellingham Cruise Terminal Dome Room, the Squalicum Boathouse, the Fisherman's Pavilion, the Blaine Boating Center, and 2 rotating container shops at the Portal. We also have for our parks and open spaces that folks can rent, Marine Park, Swanage Point Park, Peter Paulson Stage and Lawn, and the small and large gravel lots at the downtown waterfront and the Tom Glen Common. So we have quite a wide variety of spaces that our team manages. Looking back over the last year, we had another busy year for event facilities. We had more than 51,000 people attend events on port property. And that is not including our big community events that we have. So that's just those who rent our facilities for whatever other uses, private parties, meetings, weddings, memorials, that sort of thing. In 2024, we had a little bit more. We had about 52,000 attendees at events in the facilities, but this is a number we really like to try and track as much as we can. Usually they're estimates from our customers, how many people are going to be attending their event. But this is a helpful number for us because the majority of our customers find us through attending other events. Looking at total reservations, we had 485 total reservations in 2025, a little bit less than 2024. We had 542 in 2024. And then we had 622 bookings in 2025. So our customers, when they make a reservation, they can make more than one booking within that reservation. So they could do a rehearsal dinner in the boathouse on Friday night and then have their wedding in the pavilion on Saturday. So separate bookings, but same reservations. So that's the difference in those numbers. And then I thought it was interesting to include our top event types for our facilities that you can see here. And these don't really change too much year over year. They stay pretty consistent for how people are using these spaces. Taking a break from meetings and events to talk a little bit about our community events. So the large community events that the Port sponsors and collaborates with other organizations on. And this is a really great opportunity for us to be able to help provide access to these incredible public spaces and support a lot of really great organizations putting on fantastic events. So here I have listed our slate of community events that we sponsor and partner on throughout the year. So we have Fire and Story in January at the downtown waterfront, Ski to Sea, which happens actually in 2 locations on Port property, in Zwanich and in Marine Park. They also use the cruise terminal for their packet pickup. The 4th of July fireworks show and festival that happens in Zwanich. Northwest Tune-Up that happens at the downtown waterfront, also in July. Noisy Waters Mural Festival that happens at the downtown waterfront in August. Bellingham Sea Feast that happens in Squalicum Harbor and Zwanich Point Park in September. And then Holiday Port that happens in December at the cruise terminal. And Holiday Port is actually the only event we don't partner on. That's completely a port event. So it's just our staff working together to put on that event. And I will note, we have added quite a few events to this slate. I think before I started in 2021, we had Ski to Sea, 4th of July, Sea Feast, and Holiday Port. I think we also did a few years of Airfest at the airport, which we haven't done that event in quite a while, but we've added on quite a few events in the interim. And so at the first budget retreat this year, we're gonna be bringing this forward for some discussion with the commission about how we can continue supporting all of these events and making sure we can be good partners for all of these organizations. And next, I'm gonna talk through a little bit of potential rate changes that we will be bringing forward to the commission. When our team for meetings and events facilities is looking at rate changes, there are a few things that we keep in mind. We do market surveys, so we see where our rates are falling with other industries. And we really try, like with the mortgage rates, we try and stay mid-market. We're trying to be competitive, but not undercut private industries. And we're also trying to remain as accessible as possible to our really wide customer base. We also keep in mind use of this space and any feedback that we're getting from customers. So these are some of the rates that we're going to be bringing forward to commission, and I'm looking for some feedback on this before I bring those changes forward. So first up is the Fisherman's Pavilion. The change that we are proposing is just to the schedule of use for that facility. We have been using that for meetings and events specifically June 1st through October 31st, and then sharing the space November and December with the commercial fishermen. And commercial fishermen are really starting to use that space more. So it's become more complicated for us to book events in there when we have fishermen who would like to use that space all month long or all of November and December. So we think it makes the most sense to no longer have that shared time, to just give it back to the fishermen for their use for November and December, because it also gets very cold in that building and we don't have any heat in it. So another reason that we think it makes sense for us to not rent it out to private events that would be potentially very cold during their events in November and December. So that's the first recommendation that we have, is just to have our event season June 1st through October 31st. The next change that we are recommending is changing the time minimum for the hourly rate at the Squalicum Boathouse. So right now it's a 4-hour minimum to rent it, and we are recommending to change that to a 5-hour minimum to rent it, partially because of the use that we're seeing, how people are using that space, but also to match what the Bellingham Cruise Terminal Dome Room structure is, just so they're all kind of the same structure and not individually structured, if that makes sense. The next change we're recommending is the park use fee. So our park use fee right now is a little complicated. It's in addition to renting whatever facility they're renting. So the Squalicum Boathouse, say they're going to have a wedding there, they want to use the park for the ceremony. They, in addition to the Squalicum Boathouse fees, they have to pay a $150 flat rate plus a $75 an hour fee on top of that for however long they're going to be using the park. And we're recommending a change to just a single flat rate for use of that, and then they can use it for however long they want to use it that day. Just makes it a little less complicated when we're explaining all of our rates to our customers. The next change is Blaine Boating Center, again, changing the hourly rate time minimum. It's currently a 2-hour minimum. We're recommending to change it to a 3-hour minimum. We really don't see people using it for just 2 hours. All of our customers, I don't think we've had a single customer use it for just 2 hours in a while. So we're recommending we change that to 3-hour minimum. And then the final change that we are recommending is to remove the daily pop-up reservation at the downtown waterfront. We added that as an additional vendor could come in and just set up for one day. But that proved complicated when trying to find them space in the portal. There isn't a lot of space left there, and I think as we're adding on that next phase of containers down there, it just makes it a little bit more complicated. We had a lot of people who would sign up for that and then cancel because they couldn't find a space that they really liked. So we don't think it necessarily makes sense to have that rate as an option anymore. So those are all of our proposed changes, and I'm happy to answer any questions or get any feedback on those or answer any questions about meetings and events in general.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner James, questions or comments?
Are these rate changes tied to like revenue that we're trying to generate, or is this like primarily just logistics? This is what's going to work better.
Yeah, these are all really logistics based. We did quite a few rate changes about a year ago, and we're feeling really good about those rate changes. We think they make sense. I think in terms of revenue, like they're doing what they need to. These are all just more logistics things that for our customers will be a little bit clearer, make a little bit more sense for how the spaces are being used.
Yeah, that makes sense to streamline where you can. And so then as far as usage numbers going down, you know, I was talking about this with someone else recently, being a business owner. How do you know when it's appropriate to be concerned?
That's a really good question.
I mean, I would say when you start to see a pattern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're also coming out of a couple of years. There was quite a boom of events that we saw coming out of the pandemic. Like post-pandemic, people really, really, really wanted to gather. And I think people also really wanted to gather outside of their homes. So we saw this really big surge in events, and I think we're seeing a little bit of that just ebbing. So I don't think at this point it's something for us to be concerned about, that, oh no, people aren't using our spaces, because we are still seeing quite high numbers. And if you compare our numbers back to pre-pandemic, we're really still around where we were then. I think we just had a few years that we were really dang busy.
Yeah, I think it was that, the pent-up travel that people had after COVID. We saw the same thing with meetings and events. So when you compare the numbers to 2019, we're on pretty much on par.
Yeah.
And so then I noticed the new events are all down at the waterfront.
Yes.
And so do we have thoughts on, as that area evolves, what the role events will play down there? And to, what you said about wanting to support more events, like, are there opportunities to shift to other venues?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the opportunity for discussion. And I think all of the events that we have down there, all of the planning conversations that I have with the event coordinators is like, we're on a year-by-year basis with these events. We want these events to continue and to be successful, but also be aware this is a development district. So development is going to happen, and we're going to have to shift how things are looking here. I think there is definitely an opportunity to look at other port locations for events. Like, could this happen in other locations? Yeah, I think that's part of the question. And I think part of that discussion I'm hoping we can have at the budget retreat is, should we have some sort of structure or evaluation system for these events, that we're looking at them and seeing, are they still meeting the purposes that we saw? Are they still meeting the goals that we saw with these events? Are they still delivering on the things that they kind of promised to us when they approached us with the proposal for these events? So yeah, I think that's part of that whole discussion. A lot of events have happened just because they've happened for so long. So I think it's, we're at that time that it's, now's when we start talking about strategically or like long-term visioning. What does that look like?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
Okay.
Staff does a great job. I would ask, it's interesting in November, December, we had such high use in the pavilion. What type of gear was it? Was it crab gear, Stephanie, or do you know?
Yeah, it was crab gear. And I think it was maybe the same couple of fishermen who rented it, basically said they wanted to use it all of November and all of December. Whatever dates we didn't already have events in there, they wanted to use this space.
Yeah, and if commissioners, sorry, Commissioner Briscoe. If you remember when we extended those, it was to kind of activate it and give the fishermen time to get used to it being available. And so you just run into this scheduling problem, although Aaron and Stephanie work very well together, but people wanting to plan far out, whereas the people working on their gear want a little bit less structure for being able to reserve the space. So I think it's a good problem to have, actually. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Well, the only thing that I would say before we get too excited about changing both months is maybe we should just change 1 month. New gear building like the one on there this year doesn't go on every year. I mean, it's quite expensive. I'm pretty sure I know who built the new gear, and you don't build $300,000 worth of gear every year. So, just take it cautious with, not allowing other people in there, because I don't think you're going to see, I could be mistaken, but I don't think you're going to see that kind of gear building every year. especially after a crab season like we've just had on the coast. Everybody's going to be pinching their pennies. There's not going to be a lot of new gear building. So just move forward with caution, please.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, great. Well, I like seeing it used, it's called the Fisherman's Pavilion for a reason. So I'm glad to see it being used by that community, and it's a good recognition of the importance of that community, and also just a space that we worked for a long time to get built.
Yeah.
So glad to see that. I like the conversation about dispersal of events around port property. We don't, the Airfest is one that, I would love to see come back. I don't know how feasible or what kind of community partner we would need to help achieve that. It feels like one that we would really need a solid community partner to help us stand up. That one people really enjoyed, and it helps us to promote aviation pathways and careers, which we see as a good opportunity. I also notice there's none in Blaine, right?
There are currently none in Blaine. Yeah.
We have great facilities.
We do.
And a community that has been negatively impacted by lack of border traffic from Canadians not coming. This could maybe be more of a reason than ever to have an event that welcomes our Canadian neighbors to our, border town, and highlight the great facilities that we have, and just look for an event that we can really celebrate what is happening in Blaine, and why people should come and enjoy it, and our great port facilities. So
Absolutely.
I don't have the theme yet, but if you give me a couple more minutes, maybe I will. But let's think about what could be right and what some potential. I'm thinking of all our Drayton Harbor team and their project that they have, the Marisk project, could be one pathway for a community partner that could help facilitate that.
Yeah.
That's great feedback. And commissioners, we are hoping, as Stephanie mentioned, to carve out a little bit of time during the budget retreat to talk through kind of how these are funded, and are they serving our purpose and meeting our mission, and how we want to kind of go forward with maybe a more formalized program, or maybe not, but just to give you all an update on what those numbers look like.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Shepherd, I believe in the past, if my memory serves me correct, we did have a function up there at Blaine. It seems 15, 18 years ago, we had an annual thing that went on there every year. I'm pretty sure we did.
We have Drayton Harbor Days in August.
Drayton Harbor Days.
But we're a partner with the Blaine Chamber of Commerce. Andy's not here, but yeah.
Yeah. And Andy Peterson, Harbor Master up in Blaine, he partners a lot on that event.
Well, it sounds like we could do a little bit of research about this past event Commissioner Briscoe's speaking of, and just do some thinking on what could be right for activation. We've only got so many facilities that are really public facing.
Right.
We're not going to have a event at FMIP, right? We're not going to hold community events at our workspaces, but these ones that do have public spaces, gathering areas, lawns, decks, docks, and such. Do have a good opportunity for these.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of our regularly scheduled business and our second public comment period. Do we have anyone signed up or who would wish to provide a comment? We'll even accept repeat customers.
Thank you, Commissioners. Todd Legacy here as a private citizen. I appreciate the point that you made about employment during the discussion on the airport, Commissioner Shepherd. But I really want to make sure that you guys are looking and considering the employees, that as you talk with concessionaires, the concessionaires may or may not be looking at writing in the impacts to their employees. And so when you look at penalties, just for lack of a better word, that might be applied for going over, making sure that employees are considered and the impacts, because service wage jobs are typically lower, and losing your service wage job for 30 days is, I mean, that's reminiscent of COVID, right? That's a huge impact. And I was fortunate, didn't impact me. I got more overtime as a firefighter, but I saw a lot of people hurting during that time, and this makes me think of that. So I hope you'll consider looking out for the little people, if you will. And then I think you have a real opportunity as you look at your contracts going forward. You know, it was great to see all about the capital expenditures going on, but $50 million doesn't mean much to people. But if you talk about the local wages that was, right? How much in local wages of that $50 million, that should be broken out, and that should be, you know, touted by the port of like, hey, we put this much into local wages through this capital expenditure paid for from here. You know, we partnered with the ILWU and put this much into local wages. All right, thank you for your time.
Good suggestions. Thank you. Dan?
Dan Tucker, Working Waterfront again. Just wanted to mention Blaine Oyster Fest in October would be a great partnership. We go up there every year as the coalition, so putting that one out there. And then also, thanks for the considerate discussion around the moorage rates. I particularly appreciate the presence in mind that our commercial fishing and commercial tenants have in those discussions. It's been really a good dialogue that we've seen, especially from Jim Kyle, who is now back on our board of directors, being on the Marine Advisory Committee. He's able to bring some of those discussions back to us, and we're able to communicate with the members. And we've seen from the commercial side a lot of appreciation for the depth of dialogue that's happening around those this time. So thank you for that.
Appreciate that. Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to other business. Commissioner Briscoe.
Yeah, I got a couple things here. Todd touched on one of them a little bit. And for a couple of years early on in my days at the commission, we did this, and I'd like, and we had a number. We always found a number. I'd like to know how many jobs were responsible for creating in Whatcom County this year, the port, and all the things we've done. And I don't mean just, you know, interim jobs or just through a construction period or something. How many actual jobs do we create that are annual and lasting? Another thing that we used to see once in a while, and it could slip my mind, but I don't think we've seen it, is the breakdown for where the taxpayer's dollar in Whatcom County goes that they give to the port. Now, it's not a big percentage, but it adds up, and I'd like to see a report on that for the folks so they know where their tax dollars are going, so to speak. You know, because I think it's around $10 million a year we take out of the, Tiffany, is that right? About 10 million a year, 7 to 10 we take for?
Yeah, it's funny. I think Sarah and I were just talking about this morning. So yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, you know, and the breakdown of what it goes into, whether it's parks or infrastructure, or what it's doing, so that the people understand, and they know that we're not just, you know, throwing it idly at different silly projects or whatever they may think. I'd like to see that, a report on that if we could. As long as that's good with my fellow commissioners. Another thing, maybe either Brian, let's see, maybe Brian should answer this one, I'm not sure. EDI grants, or who would we have talk to that?
Tyler can probably talk about EDI grants, or depends on what project.
Well, we've been having ongoing discussions for 7, 8, 10 years about a fuel dock at Blaine. And at one point we had the folks from Semi-Ammo come in and say, hey, we'll take care of you guys, no problem, the rates will be good and everything. Well, they're taking care of the people up there. They're getting fuel there, but the rates are a bit overwhelming for what they charge. And I just want to know if a port-owned fuel dock, its infrastructure, and it's used by the public, would fall under any kind of EDI funding grant. Is that something that would fit in that realm?
Yeah, Commissioner Tyler Schroeder, Economic Development Director. I know the concept or idea in the Blaine redevelopment could include a fuel dock, a public fuel dock. And if that was owned by the Port of Bellingham on Port of Bellingham land, the infrastructure would be able to, in theory, get an EDI grant or loan to be able to help facilitate that construction.
Okay. That's the answer I was looking for, is it's a possibility, and I'd certainly like to keep it in the pipeline if we can, and any opportunity we could to procure something like that, it'd be good. I know we got to have a plan. That's the next thing I'd like to see us start working on, is what we're going to do with the fuel dock up there, because you can't have a harbor without a fuel dock. It just doesn't work. It's a big inconvenience for our tenants. It's small boats in the wintertime trying to get crossed over to, because it's not, I'll start out with, it's illegal to fuel your boat in the Blaine Harbor with cans. You cannot take cans down. It's against the fire code, and it's against the Department of Ecology's codes. So it's illegal to do. You got guys with 30-foot boats, 35-foot boats, and it gets pretty doggone rough when it's blowing southeast. You got to get across to get a little bit of fuel over at Semiahmoo. It's becoming a problem. It was a problem. Now it's really becoming a problem. So I'd like to suggest to my fellow commissioners that we try and get on the dock some kind of strategy for a fuel dock in Blaine here when we get it cleaned up. You know, we need to have a plan. We've just been batting things around in corners here and there. We really don't have a plan. It's important to our tenants. It's important to the community up there. So kind of see where that goes, I guess.
Commissioner, sorry.
Go ahead.
As we're working on the cleanup out at the Blaine Industrial Area and talking about the boatyard, fuel dock is in our consideration for that design. Recognizing that I think the fuel dock in Point Roberts has recently shut down, and so Semiahmoo is left. I did do a quick search before this meeting to try to look at their fuel prices. They're a bit higher than some places in the islands, but within the market, which nobody likes to hear about the market, but they are a bit higher. So just we are looking at fuel dock options in the design of the boatyard in Blaine Harbor.
And just for you, Commissioner James, we had a fuel dock there, but it was removed when we took over the Dodd Marina properties and what have you there. Their structures. We did have a fuel dock there. This is something new. It just went away about, 7-8 years ago, and we haven't done anything. So that's one of the other things I wanted to bring to the light there. And then, let's see, my last thing, I guess I did the job. I think that's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And thank you for that context.
Commissioner James?
Yeah. Hi, dedicated citizens who've made it through this much of the meeting and staff. I am feeling a little inarticulate, and I think I can say how I'm feeling in other business. But I'm just going to go for it. So on my list, last meeting, Commissioner Briscoe brought up the idea of a Port of Bellingham app. And I know that staff's possibly looking into that. And so I just, I feel a pattern of the things that I'm saying over and over again. So hopefully you're not tiring of them. But accessibility, modernization, strategic communications. I think a potential app lives, it touches all of those. And I really am feeling a need to prioritize some time with my fellow commissioners to just talk about strategies and not necessarily constrained by topic, which is what we're doing with the work studies, which are great. And I understand that the budget process that's going to start in May. That's sort of the beginning of the strategic process. I think I might just be feeling a little anxious about like having to wait that long before we dig into it. I can be patient, but so many things that we're talking about of like developing dashboards, sharing statistics, creating more opportunities for people to engage with us, use of EDI funding. We're just touching a lot of different subjects. And so I see potential value in us being able, because our time is together is so limited and we've got a lot of work to do at commission meetings. Is there a need? Would it be worth our time to create this strategy work study where the commission has the time and space to explore some of these things together instead of just coming here alone with our ideas? Maybe we can come together with our ideas. So I'll wait till May, but just sort of feeling like there might be a need for that. So just wanted to share that. The other thing I wanted to share is I am, I've got my meeting page. I've been doing quite a lot of community engagement, and so I do track the work that I'm doing. And so far, I am 6 weeks in, at 3.2% of my term has passed. I've held 20 meetings. I think that my best estimation is I still have 108 meetings left in this year. So if you want to grab one of those, go to commissionercarley.com and sign up. Just wanted to share some of the topics that get covered at these meetings: civic leadership inquiries, dry moorage, employment practices, governance and history, grants and funding, intergovernmental relations, labor relations, the moorage model, public development authority, systems and accountability, zoning policies, the Bellingham Shipping Terminal, the Bellingham Waterfront Redevelopment, Blaine, and the Marine Drive Industrial Park are all conversations that I've had over the last 6 weeks with you folks. So thank you for the education. I want to bring up commissioner compensation. And I think that this is an important topic that we just get on the record of where we're at as a commission and what we would like to see moving forward. We have an election coming up, and the candidates that are considering running have to make that decision by May. That's when the filing happens. So if compensation and pay is something that is a consideration for why, or if you are able to run, I think that it's a conversation that we could have. And I could end it there and just say, what do we think about having staff look into where we're at with commissioner compensation, where we're at this moment in time, what are other ports paying, what are other county electeds paying, where do we fall in that cycle? And I could leave it at that, and if that's something that we're willing to look at, we can stop there. And if you would like a little more context into why I'm thinking about this, I'm happy to share that too.
Yeah. I think it is, no secret that the commission compensation is quite low. Sometimes I mention we make $8,000 and people are like, oh, a month? Oh, wow, that's good. And I'm like, no, that was a year. And so I think in the past, we've had some conversations about staff looking at a kind of a breakdown on how we compare. This would probably fall into Riley for her team to look at and to give us some feedback on where we're sitting, kind of comparative to some of our peers, both in the county for other elected positions and then at ports statewide. I've always felt like the compensation for some is a barrier to service because for people to take time out of their paid work to do something that has minimal pay is sometimes challenging for individuals to think about for participation. And I believe we should be, considering those needs to make it an equitable experience to be in public service. It's a time-consuming commitment.
Yeah, and could I just add one thing? So we can't change our pay. What we are getting compensated right now is set for our term. And so, eyes mostly wide open what I signed up for. It's still a little bit, was difficult for me to even understand what the compensation was. And so I will say that, it's set by our CW. Ports do have commissions have the authority to make an in lieu resolution. Past Port of Bellingham Commission did that and locked us in time, and that was back in 2007. And in 2008, the state adjusted to do inflationary adjustments. So we, at this moment, are meaningfully lower than the state rate for a large port, which is what we are considered. So we're at 22% lower than what that state threshold is. So just wanted to share those last two things. But it sounds like yes on having Riley look into this.
I would be pleased to see that happen.
Yeah, we'll do some staff work on it and get information back to you.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the context, the way this can work is, staff can bring information back, the commission can review that information, and if the commission was to choose to make any adjustments, that would not take place in the term of any existing commissioner. It would take place in the a subsequent term, and so commission doesn't have the ability to set their own rates within the term they're serving. If I'm understanding that correctly, Holly.
Yep, you have that right. It's a constitutional provision.
Good.
So you could end up with different commissioners having different rates depending on where they are on their election cycle.
Yeah, and I think, I'm willing to do that if it gives us a broader group of candidates willing to step up and serve on this commission.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, along with getting that information back, I'd like the exact dollar amount we're allowed to make. Because you've got, was it 115 meetings? I forget. Was it 115 meetings or at $140, or is it 140 meetings at $150? I get confused on that one.
It's 120 meetings at $161. That's the cap. So if you go beyond 120 meetings, then you're just working for free.
So you said, what'd you say it was, 120 meetings? I don't know because I've never charged for a meeting.
Yeah,
So was it 120 at what?
120 meetings annually, and it's $161 per meeting.
So that's $19,000 right there unless my calculator doesn't work,
Sounds right.
correct?
Yeah.
And then don't we pay half of our insurance bill? Out of our meeting wages, is that what we do?
Not following.
So we have insurance, health insurance, and we partially pay for that, correct?
Riley?
And I think doesn't that end up to be about half of what we get paid per meeting?
Just a minute.
That works.
Riley will come up to the mic.
Hi, Riley Wynn, Director of HR. It depends on the plan that you're in, if you're individual plan or a family plan, but that would be deducted from whatever your regular payment is. And if your regular payment was not adequate to cover that amount, then we would invoice.
So we'll bring all this. Oh, sorry, Commissioner.
No, go ahead. It's a lot more than $8,000. And I'm not, if you want to ask, that's fine. I'm not interested in asking for more, but if you'd like to, go ahead and research it.
Yeah, we'll bring just the complete information forward for the commission to consider. And we'll do that in a timely way, understanding that May 5th is on our doorstep.
So I think it's both parts is what everyone's talking about, the per diem and then the salary.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right.
No, I have nothing more.
All right, I just have 2 items. I wanted to highlight our waterfront work session. That's going to be next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. So we'll be having conversation about waterfront district. Is that 2 weeks from now? Tuesday, Thursday. Waterfront district planning. Looking forward to that. And if folks are interested in participating, we do have information on how to participate. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, it's an open meeting.
it is.
Okay.
Open public meeting.
All right. And then I just wanted a quick update on any impacts from the budget shutdown for Department of Homeland Security and impacts we may be seeing or forecast to see at our airport. It's early, but this is our second shutdown that will be impacting employees, including TSA workers who will soon be working without getting paychecks.
Yes, that is correct. We're keeping a close eye on it. In fact, today, Congressman Larson came to the airport to discuss this with TSA. I don't believe TSA was at liberty to discuss what's going on. It's something we're keeping a close eye on. But TSA will continue to work unpaid like they have in the past, and we don't foresee any type of interruptions with commercial service.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just continue to monitor it, and we just appreciate all those employees who help keep our facilities running, even during challenging federal negotiations over their budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. That is all my other business. Any other comments? Questions? Sounds like we're done. Thank you.